Hey, so we are going through my Success in STEM journal. And as I mentioned before, every single month, working on a different theme. We talked about leadership in January. We talked about vision in February. And now we are in March. And the theme we're going to discuss is success. That's the title of the book. And so it's up early in the things that we want to focus on. And so I want to give you a very brief definition of success and then talk a little bit more about why I include it in the journal. Success is a favorable or desired outcome. Short and sweet, but not simple. Success is a tricky thing for a lot of people, but I think it tends to also be pretty challenging for those of us in STEM. I know for myself and for a lot of the women that I come in contact with that are in STEM, that we've started to pursue STEM as a child, become very interested and excited about STEM because there was something that we really loved about learning. We love to inquire about things. We love to analyze things. We love to ask questions. We love to experiment or build things. These were the things that excited us and drew us towards science or technology, engineering, or math, or any one of those STEM fields. And then as we started to get drawn in school, it started to also include a lot of awards and a lot of competitions, which is a lot of the way that in STEM you tend to be able to learn, right? And grow and develop your own ideas. And so you might participate in like for myself, I participated in a lot of science fairs, or you might do hackathons, or you might do math bowls, or one of my personal favorites was Olympics of the Mind, which was a little bit of everything. But the idea was that, you want to win, you want to get first place, you want to get that prize, you want to get that award. And that's the type of thing that would be, it would be exalted and everyone would be getting really excited about you participating and hopefully winning those things. And then you get into the workforce and it's still competitions and awards, et cetera, but also it's like you got to get funding, you got to make sure that you launch that product. So it's really outcome focused. And the outcome being that you got the point, you solved the problem. And so sometimes that excitement of what it is that we were looking to do, it's still there, but then the focus in terms of what we deem as successful ends up shifting. Not because internally that's that way, but that's because outside of us, that's what we're getting the feedback about. And so it can be a little bit tricky. So like even for myself, I think about it like there were many times that the hyper focus in my career as a researcher and a professor was on getting published, because that's basically the bottom line. Like if you're not published and if you're not funded, then you can just drop off. And so it was really, really important to make sure to do that, not just because you want to make sure you get the word out about the research that you're doing, but really honestly, because that is how you were being evaluated. And so, I would write articles and I would get them published. And there was one article in particular, I remember it was focused on neighborhoods, because a lot of my research was focused on the neighborhood environment and my research was health disparities. So I looked at neighborhood environment and how it impacted the health of youth. And there were a lot of fancy statistics in this particular article. And so when I submitted it to a particular journal, they had me like revise it over and they were not going to accept it until I revised. I mean, I revised that thing so many times. I was like, oh, this thing is being ringed out. And so when it was finally published in the scientific journal for the American Psychological Association, I literally threw a party. I literally had a party in my lab because I was so excited. It was like, woo, success. Because not only did we revise it so much, because it was in such a prestigious journal. So then there was another article that I had written that was on the same topic of neighborhood environment. And this was a small pilot interview study. It wasn't this big, large stats fancy thing. It was a small interview. And I love this study so much because it was from the perspective of youth. So much of the research at the time that focused on the neighborhood environment and health, they didn't get the perspective from young people. And so for me, it was like, this is so important to get this out there. And it had a lot to do with the concept of them hanging out all the time. And they were hanging out not just because they just wanted to be out in the street, but because there was really nothing to do. There was no resources out there, according to their experiences, for them to be able to know parks, know playgrounds, those types of things, for them to be able to do after school programs were closing. And so they were hanging out. And so talking a lot about the things that they were encountering, a lot of exposure to the risks that we see in the health world. And so they were being overexposed. And so that was sort of my main point, is that we need to look at this more. What does this mean? And so I was really, really proud of that article. And it just, no matter where I sent it, it was like, you are not cutting it. And so I felt like I failed. I really felt like I failed, even though I loved it so much. Now, if hindsight, I know that I could have done a video about it. I could have done a blog about it. I could have gotten it out there, because inside, that's the reason why I wanted to get the article published, was so that people could hear about it. But somewhere along the line, my success metric got off kilter. And instead of me saying, okay, well, no matter where it gets out there, that's my success metric, I was so focused, which is why I kept trying to send it to different places, on it getting in a science journal. And that happens a lot. That happens to all of us. But it's really important that we take the time to be able to sit down and discover exactly what success means to us. Because again, remember, it is a desired outcome, not somebody else's desire, but your desired outcome. What is it that you feel like is success to you? Now, obviously, you have to consider what your job wants to do and that kind of thing. But in terms of how you feel joy and excitement, that is what counts too. You have to also make sure that you're infusing those types of things that make you feel successful, in line with the work that you're doing for your job, or if you have your own business, same type of thing, right? And so that's the key, making the time and then revisiting that in various points in your life when maybe that success metric has shifted. Now, another thing that I came across last week, I came across this article that was written by a Yale student. It was an op-ed, and it's called literally "The Death of Women in STEM." And it was about the idea that for a lot of women in STEM, they don't necessarily want to stay in STEM, but they tough it out. And they tough it out because they kind of feel guilty. Like, there's so few women in STEM. It's like, well, if I drop out, I mean, there's only 3 of us here, that there's not going to be anyone left. So they do it for the team. But that's not success. And believe you me, I completely understand, because I left academia and there are only 2% of all the tenured professors in this country are Black women. So it was on my mind when I said I was going to leave, that, oh my goodness, I'm leaving and we're so few. But I had to, again, sit back and think about, what does success mean to me? What is my desired outcome? And so I fully understand, like, people say, you want to be successful, rah, rah, rah. It's not easy. It is not an easy thing to do. It is a very difficult thing to do. It is a very challenging thing to do. It will stretch you in so many ways. But the good news is that when you really sit really firmly in what you believe your success to be, that's how you thrive. So I would love for you to, hit me up in the comments and tell me, what does success mean to you?